A young black woman stands near her car, hands raised above her head, visibly frightened but trying to remain calm. Her breathing is shallow, her eyes wide with fear as she stares down the barrel of a gun held by a police officer, a white woman whose face is contorted with anger and suspicion. The officer's voice cuts through the stillness of the evening. "Don't move. Keep your hands where I can see them," she shouts, her tone sharp and commanding. The young woman complies immediately, lifting her hands higher, palms open, showing that she poses no threat. But the officer doesn't seem reassured. Instead, her grip tightens on the weapon, her stance rigid and unyielding. The scene feels surreal, almost like it's unfolding in slow motion. Cars pass by occasionally, their drivers glancing curiously at the confrontation before speeding away. No one stops to intervene or even ask what's happening. It's just the two women locked in this moment. One armed and aggressive, the other unarmed and terrified. "I didn't do anything wrong," the young woman says softly, her voice trembling. She tries to keep it steady, hoping to de-escalate the situation. "I was just walking to my car." "Shut up," the officer snaps, taking a step closer. "You think I don't know what you're doing? People like you always have something to hide." The words sting, not just because they're harsh, but because they carry an undercurrent of prejudice so blatant it leaves no room for doubt. The young woman swallows hard, forcing herself not to react. She knows better than to argue, especially when faced with someone who seems determined to find fault regardless of the truth. As the standoff continues, tension builds in the air. The officer's finger hovers dangerously close to the trigger, her expression a mix of hostility and unease. She glances around nervously, as if expecting backup, or perhaps dreading it. Something about her demeanor suggests she's aware that what she's doing isn't right, yet she refuses to back down. Suddenly, the sound of an approaching vehicle breaks the silence. Both women turn their heads toward the source of the noise. A large SUV pulls up slowly, its tires crunching against the gravel at the side of the road. The driver steps out, and immediately the atmosphere shifts. The new arrival is another woman, older and authoritative, radiating confidence without saying a word. She wears civilian clothes, but there's no mistaking the power she holds. Her presence commands respect, and everyone present feels it instantly. The officer's reaction is immediate and telling. Her posture changes from confrontational to defensive in an instant. She lowers the gun slightly, though she doesn't holster it completely. Her face flushes red, betraying her discomfort. For the first time since the encounter began, uncertainty creeps into her voice. "Ma'am," she stammers, addressing the newcomer. I was handling a suspicious individual. This person was acting strangely, and I had reason to believe." "That's enough," the older woman interrupts firmly. There's no shouting, no theatrics, just a quiet authority that silences the officer mid-sentence. She walks over to where the young woman stands, still frozen with her hands raised. Without hesitation, she places herself between the officer and the frightened individual, creating a protective barrier. "You can put your hands down now," she tells the young woman gently, her tone soothing and reassuring. "You're safe here." Grateful tears well up in the young woman's eyes as she slowly lowers her arms. She nods silently, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The relief washing over her is palpable, but so too is the lingering fear from the ordeal she just endured. Meanwhile, the officer fumbles for words, clearly flustered. She attempts to explain herself again, but the older woman raises a hand, cutting her off. "We'll discuss this later," she says curtly. Then, turning her attention fully to the young woman, she asks, "Are you hurt? Did she harm you in any way?" "No, ma'am," comes the soft reply. "She didn't hurt me, just scared me." The older woman nods, her jaw tightening briefly. She turns back to the officer, who now looks increasingly agitated. "Holster your weapon," she orders sharply. "Now!" Reluctantly, the officer obeys, sliding the gun back into its holster. Her hand shakes slightly as she does so, betraying her anxiety. Once the weapon is secured, the older woman gestures for her to step aside. The officer complies, moving a few paces away but keeping her gaze fixed on the ground. With the immediate threat neutralized, the older woman focuses entirely on the young woman. She asks questions calmly, ensuring she understands exactly what happened. Every detail is noted, every emotion acknowledged. Throughout the conversation, her demeanor remains composed, yet empathetic, offering comfort while gathering information. Eventually, the discussion turns back to the officer. The older woman addresses her directly, her tone icy. "What you did here today was unacceptable. You let personal bias dictate your actions, and that's not only unprofessional, it's dangerous. Do you understand the gravity of your behavior?" The officer nods hurriedly, avoiding eye contact. "Yes, ma'am. I made a mistake." "A mistake?" The older woman repeats, raising an eyebrow. "No, this wasn't a simple error. This was a gross abuse of power. You pointed a loaded gun at an innocent person based on nothing more than your own prejudices. That's not a mistake. That's misconduct." The officer flinches at the accusation, her shoulders slumping further. She opens her mouth to respond but thinks better of it, choosing instead to remain silent. After a long pause, the older woman continues. "You will be held accountable for your actions. Until then, consider yourself suspended pending investigation. And trust me when I say this isn't over, not by a long shot." With those final words, the officer bows her head, defeated. She mumbles something inaudible before retreating to her patrol car, leaving the scene as quickly as possible. Once she's gone, the older woman exhales deeply, her shoulders relaxing slightly. Turning back to the young woman, she offers a small smile. "Thank you for staying calm and cooperative. I'm sorry this happened to you. No one should ever have to experience something like this." The young woman nods, wiping away tears. "Thank you for stepping in. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't shown up." "There's no need to thank me," the older woman replies. "It's my job to ensure justice is served. Now, let's get you home safely." As they walk toward the SUV together, the weight of the evening begins to lift, at least for one of them. For the young woman, the trauma of the encounter will linger, a painful reminder of the systemic issues that continue to plague society. But for now, she finds solace in knowing that not everyone in a position of authority chooses to abuse it. The older woman drives her home, making sure she's settled before leaving. As she returns to her vehicle, she reflects on the events of the night. While progress has been made, incidents like these serve as stark reminders of how far there is still to go. With determination etched into her features, she resolves to keep fighting for accountability, for equality, and for a future where such injustices become a thing of the past. Back at her office, the older woman sits alone, reviewing notes from the incident. She types furiously on her computer, documenting everything in meticulous detail. Each sentence she writes carries the weight of responsibility, knowing that this report could shape the outcome of the investigation. She pauses briefly, staring out the window at the darkened streets below. Her mind wanders to the countless similar cases she's encountered over the years, each one leaving a scar on her conscience. She recalls the countless protests she's attended, the speeches she's given, and the lives she's tried to save through her work. Yet, despite all her efforts, moments like tonight remind her that change is painfully slow. Still, she refuses to give up. If anything, encounters like these fuel her resolve even more. Hours later, she finally closes her laptop and leans back in her chair. Exhaustion weighs heavily on her shoulders, but there's also a flicker of hope. Hope that someday, stories like the one she witnessed tonight won't exist anymore. Hope that young Black individuals won't have to live in constant fear of those sworn to protect them. Hope that people in positions of power will learn to recognize their biases and work to overcome them. The next morning, news of the incident spreads quickly throughout the community. Social media platforms light up with outrage and calls for justice. Videos captured by bystanders circulate widely, amplifying the voices of those demanding accountability. Protesters gather outside the local police station, holding signs that read "Black Lives Matter" and "Enough is enough." Among the crowd is the young woman from the previous night. Though hesitant at first, she decides to join the demonstration, feeling empowered by the support surrounding her. As she marches alongside others, chanting slogans and sharing her story, she realizes she's not alone. There's strength in numbers, and together, they vow to hold those in power accountable. Later that week, a formal hearing takes place regarding the officer's conduct. The older woman testifies, recounting the events of that fateful evening with unwavering clarity. Her testimony paints a vivid picture of the officer's reckless behavior and blatant disregard for protocol. Others come forward as well, including witnesses who were present during the altercation. Throughout the proceedings, the accused officer sits quietly, her head bowed. Gone is the bravado she displayed during the initial confrontation. In its place is shame and regret, though whether it's genuine remains unclear. When called upon to speak, her voice cracks as she apologizes for her actions, claiming she acted out of fear rather than malice. But apologies aren't enough. Not this time. The board overseeing the case delivers a verdict swiftly: termination of employment and criminal charges filed against the officer. News of the decision brings a sense of vindication to the young woman and the broader community. It's a small victory, but an important one nonetheless. In the weeks that follow, the older woman continues her advocacy work, speaking at schools, community centers, and public forums about the importance of reform within law enforcement. She emphasizes the need for better training, stricter accountability measures, and greater diversity among officers. Her message resonates deeply, inspiring others to take action in their own communities. For the young woman, life gradually begins to return to normal. The trauma of the incident lingers, manifesting in sleepless nights and sudden bursts of anxiety. But with the support of friends, family, and counselors, she learns to cope. More importantly, she finds purpose in using her experience to educate others about racial injustice and the urgent need for systemic change. Together, these two women, though worlds apart in age and background, become symbols of resilience and hope. Their paths may never cross again, but the impact of their shared experience reverberates far beyond the confines of that quiet street where it all began.